4.92% risk-free throughout your retirement. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, that's what's going on right now. Check this out. This is a 30-year government bond, 4.92% right now. 30 years. Guaranteed, there is no risk to principal. There is no investment risk, i.e. it can't go bankrupt because the U.S. government, the U.S. government has obligations to pay off its debtors. That's the most safest investment there is U.S. government debt. All right, that's just a fact. There's no principal risk, no risk to principal, no risk to bankruptcy. Now, you could say it's purchasing power risk in that the 4.92% is a fixed amount. It doesn't ever change. It doesn't compound, doesn't do simple additions. It just, you don't reinvest in the bond. And as such, you can say my 4.92%, while it sounds good today, that just stays flat. And so if interest rate goes up, the inflation rates go up, my 4.9% buys less and less. So we'll get in that here in just a second. I'm going to share with you an example how this is going to work. But there is no risk at all for the safety of your principal. The interest will always be paid without question. All right, so let's just say you're Diane. I got this Diane sample ready to go here in Right Capital. And she goes, Josh, I'm 65. I'll be 65 in 2 weeks. I expect to live till I'm 95. I got $1 million. When all's said and done, I need to spend about $49,000 a year. All right. And just ironically, I'm getting $49,000 a year in interest from the U.S. government. I said, yes. But I say, Diane, do you think that $49,000 will grow? Your expenditures will grow? Well, probably inflation. I've bought into the fallacy that our expenses grow in retirement each and every year with inflation. I said, okay. So $49,000 a year today will be the equivalent of what? $51,000 a year next year will be the equivalent of $53,000 the following year. So yes. I said, okay, gotcha. Right now we can get $49,000 guaranteed without any risk for the rest of your life. But what's going to happen is you're only getting this $49,000 and your expenses are going up each and every year. So the $49,000 won't cover the expenses. So you have to dip into principal. She goes, I still like the risk-free nature of that. Can I make that work for 30 years? I'm going to show you. So let's go here. So we're going to hit Diane sample. All right. So we're going to show you. She's got $1 million. We're going to put it all in a I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. We're going to put it all into a 4.9% portfolio. All right. Now, there is no standard deviation in terms of if you're just locking in your money without ever intending to sell it, there is no standard deviation for you. Now, there is a volatility of the share price depending on interest rates. But if you're like, I'm just putting my $1 million in a long bond, I'm never going to touch the principal. I'm never going to, I'm just going to allow it to go. I'm never going to touch it. Then you're like, okay, it doesn't matter what the volatility is. It just says at the end of the day, I'm going to come back 30 years from now and collect my $1 million. That's how it works. All right, I hope that makes sense. I don't know how to do this in Right Capital. I have no standard deviation. So I'm going to give her a little bit of volatility there. And it's not true. You're just collecting your interest. I guess you can make an argument that you can't actually sell portions of that bond. No one's going to buy $1 million bond anyway. There's no such thing as a million. There might be, but no such thing as a retail investor buying $1 million bonds. So in this case, Diane would buy, $10,000 bonds or $25,000 bonds and stuff like that. I don't want to get too deep in that. But anyway. Well, we're saying that Diane's going to get 4.92% fixed for the rest of her life. She needs $49,200 today or this year, and then they'll adjust for inflation. So that might not be explained very well. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. This will make sense. We'll go to cash flows, and we're going to hit summary. So you'll see her expenditures right here with $49,000, $50,000, $52,000, $53,000, $54,000, $56,000. So those are going up. All right. Now her income flows. We're going to go to invested assets. So you can see this is the amount of money she's getting on interest, $49,000. But it doesn't cover the next year her expenses because she has to dip into principal. She only has $999,000 left as opposed to $1 million. So next year she's going to have to dip into principal for about $8. The following year you can see how that is. Her following year you can see her principal is going down because her interest isn't keeping up with her rising costs. So this is the amount of interest she's receiving. You have 48,000, 48, 48, 48, 48, 47, 46, 45. That's not keeping up with the rising cost of her inflation. All right? I hope this makes sense. So if you look at this, we're saying, man, there's not likely a chance that she's going to survive. We can see right here, by the time she's 92 years old, so 27 years, she ran, at the median, she has no more money left. So that's essentially when they say she ran out of money by the time she's 92 at 27 years. But the reason it's showing that is because we have this standard deviation of 1.9%. What if there is no standard deviation? What if she just takes the interest off each and every year and then dips into principal? Watch what happens now. This is pretty interesting, man. Cash flows. His net worth. Here's her accounts. She still has $199,000 to her name in year 30. So that 1.9% standard deviation right there, that really changed the complexity of the portfolio. It says you only have an 18% probability of success. It says you're going to run out of money in year 92. But if we don't have any standard deviation, if we just say we have $1 million, we're going to take out our interest we're getting, and if we need to dip it in principal, we're going to dip it in principal. Without any volatility. Remember, the standard deviation is just volatility, essentially selling when the portfolio is down a little bit. Even a 1.9% standard deviation is volatile compared to a 0% standard deviation if you just take your interest out. Now, you can make a case, hey, she can't get, she's going to have to sell some principal when the interest rates might change. I get that, 100%, I get it. Even if she locked in bonds over the course of 15, 20, 30, 40 years, not 40, but 5, 10, 15, it's not quite as secure as I'm showing you there. But what I'm trying to get at is a difference between saying I'm going to lock in my money for 4.9% a year guaranteed versus what? Without any standard deviation, without any volatility. I'm getting $49,000 a year on my interest. And even if I have to sell a little bit of a bond, or I should say small bond, in which to generate the income I need, I'm going to go. Now watch what happens though. If we say, we don't think she's going to be adjusting for inflation. We actually think, I don't know what this is going to look like. We're going to go to here, income. And we're going to see what she needs, goals, excuse me. And we're going to say instead of adjusting that for inflation, we're going to use retirement spending stages. Watch what happens here. So here I'm doing retirement spending stages, and you can see her expenses, 44,000, 45, 46. We're adjusting for inflation each and every year until she hits 75. Then she's going to go from 58 to 51,000, 58 to 51, and that's a 10% reduction. Then we're going to adjust every year with inflation until she's 85. And then she goes from 69 to 60,000. And the reason I use that is because that's what the BLS data would show. That roughly you're decreasing your expenditures each and every year between a 0.5 to 1 to maybe even 2% a year. And I absolutely think that's true. But instead of doing it every year, I'm just doing it once every 10 years. You're reducing your expenditures by 10%. So in this case, her total expenditures would be, it went from 70,000 to 62,000, from 84 to 85, from 74 to 75, and went from 62 to 55,000, and then again it readjusts. And you'll see it doesn't really change a whole lot on this right here. It goes from, I think it was 2% or something like that, 2% to 18%, depending on if this is inflation adjustment and this is retirement spending stages adjustment. I hope this probably doesn't make any sense, but I'm going with it. So you can see she's going to end up spending $1.903 million on retirement spending stages, where she's dropping her expenditures by 10% when she's 75 and 85, versus under the proposed plan, I think she was like 2.3. So a $400,000 difference in expenditures by the time she's if she does retirement spending stages. It goes up, goes down a little bit, goes up, goes down a little bit, goes up, versus just a straight inflation adjusted expenditures each and every year. But in both cases, well, not both, I shouldn't say that, not both cases. In the retirement spending stages, if we go to retirement, I need to keep screwing that up. Watch, if we go to retirement, go to cash flows, go to summary, go to net worth. And the proposed plan, she ran out of money in year 92. That's with the inflation adjusted each and every year. She ran out of money in 92. And the retirement spending stages plan Watch what happens. She doesn't run out of money. She has $199,000 when she dies. Even though both of these right here, right there, they both say there's a very likely probability she runs out of money. And the only reason they're showing that there is because we still have a 1.9% standard deviation. I was working with these people yesterday, and I showed them. I said, "Man, if you get a guarantee, if we could get you a 5.5% guarantee with no risk, you're fine to retire." It's all there is to it. And he was young. I said, "But with a standard deviation I'm showing you, there's a chance that you're going to run out of money." I think I can't remember exactly when, but and I said that's the difference between a fixed rate of return and a volatile rate of return. The fixed rate of return will give you a whole lot more wiggle room than a volatile rate of return, because the volatility is what can doom you, but also can make you rich. Don't get me wrong. A fixed rate of return won't make you rich, but it's probably not going to doom you unless you're spending well above what you can afford. And that's what I'm showing here. If you can lock in 4.9%, now again, these are compounded interest rates. It's a great place to start, man. You're saying I'm getting essentially $50,000 a year on $100 million each and every year without any risk. Now, what happens if she just spent a little bit less than the $49,000? Watch this. We're going to just say, look, she doesn't need $49,000. We're just going to say she needs, I don't know, freaking, say $3,300 a month. And that's now we're going to have taxes to pay on that. Don't get me wrong. So we're going to show you, instead of $49,000, essentially eating all her interest income, we're going to have her spending, what did I say here? $45,000. So that extra $4,000, the difference of $4,000, this is current plan. I mean, just that little bit of difference makes her portfolio now a 62% probability of success with a Monte Carlo, assuming the 1.9% standard deviation. And yet, if we look at net worth, she has $566,000 left when she dies if you have no standard deviation. I hope this makes sense, but the point being is, man, why swing for the fences if you don't need to? If I can lock in basically 5% a year guaranteed, again, if I'm eating all my interest away in expenditures and then I'm eating my principal away in expenditures, this makes it harder because you can't lock in a 30-year bond if you're going to tap into principal. At some point, you're going to have to sell the bond, and then you are facing interest rate risk where the price could fluctuate as depending on what the interest rates do. But I'm telling you, man, anyway, more to come on this. Because I do have some thoughts on the interest rate cycle, what's telling us, especially about equity markets, because there is something that does bother me. I'll get in that tomorrow. God bless. Love your thoughts. I hope you ramble too much. I'm trying to explain things, dude. And hell, it's in my head. I'm not going to do any script. I just say what comes to my mind. And it seems like people like it. So I'm going to keep doing it. God bless. We'll see you. Smash.